So great to have you back again for another installment of Hope and Help for 2021. And this one, all things related to your career, maybe your next chapter, or even news you can use ideas, free tips from a pro to help you land your dream job, right? So where do you start? It's been a crazy past several months for a lot of folks. And when it comes to navigating the job front, we wanted to find somebody who is dialed into it on a daily basis. His nickname, they call him the employment matchmaker. I want to bring in Bill Leonard from Leonard Workforce Solutions. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. I really appreciate it.
All right. So when they hear employment matchmaker, that's what you've been dubbed. I've seen people use those quotes, even giving testimonials on your website. Give me your elevator speech. What are you all about, Bill?
Sure. So Bill Leonard, president of Leonard Workforce Solutions. I provide recruiting services to businesses and career development services to job seekers. I've been successfully matching job seekers and employers for a number of years in a number of different roles. Prior to Leonard Workforce Solutions, I was working at PA CareerLink, where I helped to reemploy long-term dislocated workers. I was also a recruiter in the healthcare industry, where I recruited and hired healthcare workers. And as an employment matchmaker, really what I do is have meaningful conversations with job seekers and employers so I could gain some true insights, so I could better match them to each other based on mutual strengths, interests, values, and goals. And Ryan, I love what I do.
Yeah, I can tell you are always all over LinkedIn, and you really have your pulse on everything going on with career and job opportunities, specifically in Northeastern and Central Pennsylvania. So let's start at the time of recording this with you, Bill. It is January. You know, the pandemic's still happening, still on the minds of so many folks. So what's really been going on in the job market? Is it more people looking for work now, or more people who had a wake-up call saying, I hate my job, I need to do something new? What are you finding?
I think it's a little bit of both, and I want to offer some reasons for people to be hopeful in 2021. Currently in our viewing area, there are thousands, let me repeat that, thousands of open job opportunities, okay? The second thing is those industries and jobs that were hardest hit because of the pandemic, retail, restaurants, travel, tourism, hotels, what have you, those industries are going to come back. And when they do, there's going to be a lot of job growth, okay? Number three, the work from home movement has been sort of sped up because of the pandemic. So there's going to be much more flexible working arrangements moving forward. I think employers are going to institutionalize some of these policies. So remote work is going to be more common. So people will actually have more opportunities and can better, navigate that work-life integration. And, what I also want to say is that this is one of the better times to become an entrepreneur, because, if you have ideas, there's other people out there looking for jobs, looking for an employment. You hook up with them, the power of the internet, the power of social media. There's just so many opportunities to solve problems and challenges out there.
And I guess playing off of what you said, thousands of jobs available, like what are you finding? Like what are really the hot ones? So when people are saying who's hiring, can you just bullet point a few of the industries, just maybe even besides some of the hospitality gigs?
Absolutely. So some of the industries that are really growing and hiring right now include healthcare, the skilled trades, manufacturing, actually, anything logistics or transportation related. Real estate is booming in Northeastern PA and the Poconos and the Lehigh Valley, and really anything technology related, right? So software development, e-commerce, business and home automation. So anything having to do with technology is really hot right now.
And before we dive into how do you land that job or where do you go in 2021 to find it, what are the tips that you offer people when they come to you and they say, Bill, I think I need a new chapter, but I don't know what I want to do?
Sure. There's there's a few main career development services I provide, along with the resume writing and the mock interviews. It's that job search strategy, and it's that career coaching. And career coaching is a multi-appointment process where we're going to dig into your past. We're going to do some visioning in the future. We're going to do some experimenting and some research, and then we're going to do some targeted action. And then again, that job search strategy, that's all about targeting specific industries, specific companies, and specific people you want to work for. So again, the job search strategy and the career coaching are two of the biggest services that people come to me for.
And if people do, whether they're looking on LinkedIn or they come to someone like you and they know exactly, okay, I've done this job for 10 years, but I really want to do this type of gig. Where do people go in 2021 to find the best jobs? I know you shared some stats with me during our chat before we even did this interview. Obviously, employers get hundreds and hundreds of resumes every week, right? So how do people stand out and where do they go to find these jobs they want?
Sure, there's three main ways to go about it. So the way most people go about finding a job is applying online, and that's okay. The success rate is not great though, right? Because you have hundreds of people submitting resumes for that one particular job. Some of the common ways to go about that though are the Indeed.com, Monster.com, Career Builder, the PA Career Link website. So those are some of the common job boards, right? You can go to company career pages. So for instance, if you wanted to work at Allied Services, you can go to the Allied Services website and go to their career pages and find jobs that are available. And a lot of companies actually are posting their jobs on social media. That could be Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. So that's level one. Level up to level two, that's networking. That's where you're going to target 3 to 5 industries you want to work in, maybe 10 to 15 companies you can see yourself working in, and you're going to go about networking your way into those jobs. I know people are saying that sounds kind of impossible, but let me tell you it's not. Because once you know where you want to work and who you want to work for and with, all you need to do is start building those relationships. Start reaching out to people via LinkedIn. If you want to work for a local community bank and you know that they're sponsoring a 5K run, show up at that community event and introduce yourself to the employees that are there. Networking is very, very easy. You just have to put in the time to do it. And then the top level, the hardest one, is to get recruited. That is all about doing amazing work, being visible, and promoting yourself. And that could be on social media. You might have your own website, and that could be in the community as well. But it's all about promoting yourself and your work, being visible.
I love that. I love the networking tips you offered, and you really did a good example. I guess just expanding upon some of the networking ideas you suggested, at what point do you dial it back so you don't become kind of like a stalker for somebody in a company you want to work for, right? Like how many messages on LinkedIn are too many? Because I've reached out to people in the past just to pick their brain on certain industries. And sometimes they're like, oh, your message got buried. Thanks for reaching back out. So what do you advise clients to do?
Yeah, I would say no more than 2 or 3 max, because you're right. A message could get buried in their inbox or the direct messages. So you reach out, you don't hear back. Maybe you follow up in a week or two. If you don't hear again, you could always ask for an introduction from a friend. So maybe that person isn't responding to you because they don't know who you are. But maybe you go to your friend and say, hey, can you introduce me to Ryan Leckey? And that friend does make that introduction. They're more likely to respond that way. So you're right. You don't want to seem like you're stalking the person. So no more than 2 or 3, but use that friend if you can to make that introduction.
And I love those 3 biggies you shared, right? Applying online to start. Level 2 is looking at your network and try to connect with people who might know someone who works for the company. And then if you're, really want to stand out, getting recruited. But talk to me about something known as the hidden job market. What is that?
I love that term, and I think few people know what that's all about. So that is all those jobs that are available that aren't publicly advertised that nobody knows about. So the statistics and the research says that for every 1 job that's publicly advertised, at least 1 more is available but not known to the public because it's not being advertised. So in other words, if you go online and you see 10 marketing positions, more than likely there's 20 of them, but those other 10 you don't know about. Some reasons why companies don't post their jobs online: they may not want to go through 100 or 200 resumes, right? They may not want their competition knowing about open availabilities at their company. And frankly, they may not, have the resources or the skills to do a good job of recruiting. So as a job seeker, as someone who's out there looking for those jobs in the hidden job market, it's incumbent upon you to network with employees who work at the company. Okay, it's incumbent upon you to network with independent recruiters who could make that connection for you. Another way you could break into the hidden job market is by volunteering at that company, especially if it's a nonprofit. And finally, and a lot of people don't think about this, it's doing some contract work, some part-time work, some temp work at that company, because then you start to hear about jobs that become available that aren't posted online. You're top of mind because you're already sort of working with the company, even if on a part-time basis. So, you might have it in because you're already working with the company.
And speaking of networking, I see you, me, we're sort of extroverts, right? We get around people. We love to meet new people, see what they're up to, what they're passionate about. What if you're an introvert? Like, how do you network if that's kind of how you roll, which is cool?
And, I've been an introvert most of my life, actually, Ryan. And so what I would say,
that. Okay.
what I would say to the people who consider themselves introverts, and I don't necessarily like labels, but let's just call it that. You are actually a better networker for a few different reasons. Number one, you listen. Number two, you ask questions. You're present in the moment. You follow up afterwards. You show interest in the conversation. And those are all things that are the foundation for strong relationships. So you might talk to fewer people at an event. Maybe it's 5 rather than 30. But more than likely, when you leave, you're going to have 5 strong connections and 5 strong relationships. Whereas if you're an extrovert, you're sort of bouncing around from person to person and group to group. You're sort of talking maybe about yourself and you're not really paying attention to the person. That is not the way to form strong relationships. So my advice to people is, if you're an introvert, find a friend, go to networking events, even if it's just a half an hour or an hour. You've got to sort of do something, because you have the power to build strong relationships with who you are.
And just let's talk about when you get to meet these people, right? And they ask you, all right, so what are your skills, or what's your elevator speech? What are the specific skills that employers really everywhere are looking for in today's economy?
Yeah, it's changing a lot. So there's a couple that I want to hit upon. So I think empathy is one, adaptability, storytelling, emotional intelligence, learnability, curiosity, and of course, communication, teamwork and collaboration, and technical skills are obviously huge. Those are what's called hard skills, but all those other skills I mentioned, those are what are called sort of soft skills or people skills, or what I like to say are life skills. But it's that empathy, that emotional intelligence, the storytelling, the communication that is so, so important, because most work is relational. In those soft or people skills, that's going to allow you to be successful at work.
Such good information. And I'm looking at this, some of the notes I wrote down as well. When it comes to taking those skills that are really hot right now, like you said, empathy, adaptability, learnability, if you're looking to switch careers altogether, right? Like, if say you've been in banking for X amount of years, but you're looking to do something totally different, like, how do you navigate that and really maximize and capitalize on those hot skills that people are looking for in today's economy?
Yeah, when you're talking about a switch, a career switch, that could be a job function switch, or it could be an industry switch, and they're both very challenging. So you're going to want to focus on transferable skills. So what skills did you develop and have from previous roles that you could roll over into a new role? Maybe it's communication, maybe it's project management, maybe it's welding skills. But what could you take from your previous job into your future job? You need to provide evidence of your ability to quickly learn new processes and new technologies. So you might be going into a new industry or a new company or job function, and you don't have those specific skills, but you need to be able to say, my previous 2 roles, what I did was I quickly learned these new processes, and within a few weeks or a few months, I was up and running. And in fact, I was training new people as well. What's your unique selling point? What sets you apart from the other job seekers? Networking is also important, because you're going to need that for introductions and referrals. If you're going into a new industry, a new job function, you're going to need people to make introductions for you. I would also say branding, right? Personal branding. I know a lot of people, aren't really sure what that's all about, but that's all about how others perceive you. So what do you want your identity to be about? What do you stand for, right? So if you're transitioning from, let's say, accounting to human resources, your brand has to be all about human resources. You need to sort of let go of the accounting background. Understand and convey the value you provide to the employer, right? So how are you going to solve the employer's pain points or problems. And finally, what I would say is upskill or reskill. So going into a new industry, a new job function, you may need to develop new skills, right? So there's a lot of no cost and low cost ways to do that, whether those are online courses, certifications, maybe training at a local community college or technical school. Maybe through volunteering, you pick up new skills. So those are some of the things you're going to want to consider when switching careers.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack just with that topic alone. But I guess when we look at, if you network correctly, if you found the job online right, you have the right skills for the fit. Talk about how the game has really changed with interviewing virtually, do's and don'ts of that. I'm sure you've shared that with a lot of your clients, and why resumes are still important.
Sure. So when it comes to virtual networking, what you want to understand is it's not just an interview. It's actually like a technology skills test. So the employer is going to want to know, are they proficient in whether it's Zoom or Microsoft Teams, whatever system they're using? They want to know, can the job seeker, the applicant, can they handle that? Well, when you're talking about a virtual interview, you still want to dress nice. You still want to smile and be likable and personable. But you want to limit the distractions, right? So you don't want to sit in front of a window where there's light coming through. You don't want too much on the wall behind you. You want to silence your phone. So those are some of the main things. And also, and this is really hard, you want to look into the camera, not at the person on the screen, because when you start to look at the person on the screen, it takes your eyes away from the camera. And that just looks very awkward to the other person. And that's really tough, but you have to practice that. And when it comes to resumes, a couple points I want to hit home for your viewers here. Number one, your resume is a marketing document. It is not a biography, okay? It's a marketing document. Number two, the purpose of the resume is not to get the job. The purpose of the resume is to get the interview. Your resume should be 1 to 2 pages in length. It should be formatted correctly. There's a lot of white space on there. A lot of action verbs: led, created, developed. A couple other things, you want it to be accomplishments based, right? So a lot of people go into it putting down what their responsibilities were, but really you need to convey what your accomplishments were. So an example might be increase sales by 10% or help secure a $25,000 federal grant. Future employers want to know, what did this person accomplish, and could I envision them accomplishing that for my company? And another thing I just want to talk about, Ryan, very quickly is, don't let the good get in the way of the great when it comes to your resume. You don't want to muddle up the great accomplishments with only some good or average ones, right? Because that's going to get in the way of the great stuff. Only list your best accomplishments, because that's what you want to convey to the employer.
I mean, I love what you said. The resume is to get you in the door for the interview, not necessarily the job. And I was going to ask you, how many pages should it be? Because people are so divided on this, right?
Yeah. And so a big problem I see is people over communicating on resumes, right? They go beyond 2 pages. And another big thing is, you don't want to go beyond 10 or 15 years, because number one, a lot of those experiences, are going to be out of date, maybe some of the technology used. And number two, it really does date you. And unfortunately, there are some, recruiters or hiring managers that may have age biases, right? So I wouldn't recommend going back any more than 10 to 15 years on your resume as far as your work experience goes. And you should not go over 2 pages unless you're, at that executive level, where, there's a lot to put on there, maybe like a professor or a CEO, somebody like that. But keep it to 2 pages. Make it very crisp. What you want to do is you want to say to the recruiter or hiring manager, you want to make it obvious for them, this is why Bill Leonard's applying for the job. It's so obvious, right? You don't want them to say, I don't get it. What does this person want to do, right? Make their job easy for them.
I love that. And Bill, I guess finally, as we start to wind this down, because my last question is about knowing when you want to take that step. Just with, when you talked about resumes and you talked about networking and everything else, are there any resources or places that you feel are underutilized by people that are even free that says, hey, this will help you get a really banging resume?
Yeah, so what I would say is, don't do it alone in your career. You want to rely upon your network, your career board of advisors, and that could be anywhere from 3 to 10 people who are going to help you navigate your career. Staffing agencies. How about a job club? of other job seekers that you get together with for support and who could help you with developing your resume and with mock interviews. A career coach, whether it's myself or somebody else, these are all people that could help you land a job, help you with your resume, help you with your interviewing. And another thing, Ryan, is a boomerang employee. That's a term not many people know about, but you could always go back to your former employer. Things might have changed. Maybe a former supervisor that you worked with and didn't get along with is no longer there. Maybe the culture has shifted, but there are a lot of benefits to actually going back to your former employer. I've done that in my career, so there's benefits to the employer and the job seeker as well.
Really great stuff. And how do you find the job groups, I guess? Is it just LinkedIn, or are there any other tips and tricks that you would say, hey, go here to connect with other people in Northeastern and Central Pennsylvania who are on the job hunt?
Sure. So you could do it in a number of different ways. Through your local career link, they often have job clubs, sometimes through the Chamber of Commerce. But you're right, on LinkedIn, there are people who sort of advertise themselves as hashtag open to work. And so you might want to reach out to those people and say, hey, I see that we're both in accounting. We're both looking for jobs. You want to hop on a Zoom call sometime and strategize together, right? Reaching out to people in your network, and that could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a former coworker, but there are people available who are in the same situation that you are and who could probably use your support and lend you their support.
And the final thought of this whole chat, if people have watched this, they hear jobs are out there. They know about networking, the recruiting opportunities, finding maybe a career coach, right? At what point do you know it is time to leave your current career? If you're not one of those people maybe who wake up every day and you maybe don't like working with this person or reporting to the supervisor, what are the signs, Bill, that tell you it is time for a change?
A couple of red flags I want your viewers to think about. Lack of internal opportunities for growth, learning, and development. There might be a misalignment between your values and your goals and that of your company. You might have a poor relationship with your supervisor or coworkers, and that's having a negative impact on your physical or your mental health. Your industry or job or company may be contracting, and you want to pivot to an industry or job or company that's growing. Maybe some of those internal rewards, such as meaningfulness and purpose, are no longer there, or the external rewards, such as pay, are not enough. And finally, you might just need a new challenge or a fresh start, and there's nothing wrong with that. People need a change. So a fresh start and a new challenge, sometimes that's called for every few years.
And how long should you give yourself, Bill? When you tell people if you're looking for a new job or just a different job in the same industry, how long does it take?
Sure. The research says it takes about 5 to 6 months to find a new job on average. So it could be longer than that, and it could certainly be shorter than that. But the key point is, don't start after you've been let go or quit, right? You want to start when you're in a good place and you're thinking clearly. So don't look for your next opportunity when you're desperate. Look for it from a position of strength.
So much great news. You can use information. And we mentioned networking throughout this entire chat. So if people want to network with Bill Leonard, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. They can go to my website, leonardworkforcesolutions.com, or they could look me up on LinkedIn. So it's Bill Leonard in Scranton, or on Twitter at @TheBillLeonard.
The one and only, the employment matchmaker, Bill Leonard. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, Ryan.